Won't you join us?
This film had a very Alice through the looking glass feel. It felt that confusing, where she sits down with these strange people in essentially masks covering themselves, their head, and they're making her question her ideals. And it kind of gives that feeling where you're in this world that you're trying to make sense of, but you really can't. Um, Especially when people try to get you confused and to overwhelm you and saying, "Who are you?" And all the talking heads, figure things, all kind of are the points that we all hear, especially on social media where we read it or watch it a lot. And this film has a great point, but it has that very much Alice through the looking glass feel where you're trying to make sense of something that you just can't. So you kind of have to go through it with grace until you accept who you are. Which in her case is she doesn't know who she is. She's just trying to do her job and they kind of suck her into their cult like world. It was really quite interesting. I love the masks, I love the special effects. I loved the concept of the story. It was just all there with this very classic feel.
Sensus Mori. I loved this piece. It was fantastical. The art direction and design, I couldn't take my eyes away from. It felt like a really bizarre drug trip, Alice in Wonderland, fully realized. And just trying to make sense of all of the ways of living and seeing alternative lifestyles, alternative ways of seeing the world. And interesting from a journalist sense because they were faceless, these people that she's trying to take a census of, an analysis of. She sees them as faceless and just as kind of obscure or different, or what possessions they own, like the house on the head or the flower, and or as creatures. And it's really neat to have kind of the dinner party aspect where you're sitting down like civilized adults and figuring out what matters to you and your purpose in this kind of trippy manner. But gorgeous filming. I loved the atmosphere created, the costuming, the set design, chef's kiss. And I would love to see more from this team. Lots of great thoughts percolating after watching this.
Sensus Mori. I thought this was really, really fun. Obviously, there are very, very big elements of kind of Alice in Wonderland and falling down the rabbit hole. I also think in this idea of losing yourself, you can often feel like you have fallen down some kind of rabbit hole because you're looking around and you really kind of don't recognize anything, whether that is in the kind of, dramatic and theatrical and, kind of, leaned into tea time or dinner, whatever this was. Or it's just in the kind of you're looking around your life, you're looking around the choices that you've made and you don't really recognize how you got to where you are. I think that idea of losing your sense of self can often feel like that. And like I said, maybe it's not quite that, thematic, but there's a lot of parallels that I saw between the two, and I thought that it was really well done. I liked that you had these kind of masks on and that she was the only one whose face you could see. I think that when you're talking about your, sense of self, and that when you're introducing this concept in almost the whole film, the only face you see is hers, I think is really, really interesting and really, really beautiful and such a great idea. And this moment at the end where it kind of feels almost not antagonistic, but there's definitely some tension throughout the whole thing as she's kind of, trying to interview and, ask her questions, and they're coming back at her, and it's a little bit combative, but like I said, I wouldn't say necessarily antagonistic, but you definitely feel the tension and you feel it build, and you're like, oh, is this kind of a bad situation? Is this kind of like, is this gonna go sideways for her? And then you have this great moment of surrounding and support and community at the very end when she admits like she doesn't really know, and they're like, that's okay, you don't have to know in this moment, but you're not alone and you're not knowing. And I think that was really, really, really beautiful, and I greatly enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was dramatic and theatrical and really meaningful, and had some beautiful emotions and beautiful concepts that they introduced.